Okay, fine. So before we go in the details and see that how the progression is going to affect the permanent blinding condition in the society, let's have a look over the video.
Ma'am, audio is not coming.
Audio is not coming, huh?
Yeah.
But Shweta, the audio is not audible from this from your laptop screen.
1 second. I'll just go back. I'll just stop sharing.
Yes, we all have seen Titanic so many times. We actually don't need. We can actually it reminds us all the audio.
No, actually, there is something more than the video of Mr. Prasad. So we need the
Sure,
audio
definitely
right
we'll go with it.
Can you please help me with that? Can you please help me with that?
Sure.
Because in the dry run, it was working.
I would request you to please stop sharing your screen and reshare your screen.
Right.
मैम जहाँ पे आप शेयर करती है ना वहाँ पे ऑप्शन आता है नीचे लिखा हुआ कंप्यूटर विद ऑडियो
जी ओके
उसको आप क्लिक करेंगे
ओके थैंक यू जी आई गॉट इट now is it audible?
Yes.
Who said the Titanic was unsinkable? It sank by the power of the iceberg, though only the tip could be seen. The magnitude of glaucoma is that like the tip of the iceberg, with the greater proportion not seen, which is increasing by progression. Which is why we need to identify what is causing glaucoma progression and how we can halt the same before it's too late to prevent the loss of vision.
So as we all saw that the tip of the iceberg could never be underestimated, and so is the burden of glaucoma in the society. Coming through a systemic review and meta-analysis, which is projected that the burden of the estimated burden of glaucoma is going to be 66.83 million, starting from 46.24 in 2020. That's a huge amount of burden, especially when we talk about the Asian countries. So just to share that our share being a glaucoma treating people, we can share our bit in the society by disabling this or stopping the progression of this particular blinding condition. To know the nature of the disease, as we all know, we have learned it by heart by now, that it's a progressive glaucomatous optic neuropathy. But when we talk about the progression, it is in the terms of a structure and function over many years. And here we can categorize the patients into two groups, a fast progressor and a slow progressor. And when we talk about this particular instruction course, we are basically going to focus on the fast progressors who are at the risk of significant visual disability or blindness. And for this, we know that the key to the glaucoma management is not only about attaining the target IOP. It's beyond that, that's attaining the target IOP, the prevention of vision loss with a good quality of life. And for that, we need to do a proper risk stratification. But stop here so that we can see that what are the different stages of the glaucoma progression, that's glaucoma progressive disease, starting with the occult where the white on white perimetry may be normal, but the subclinical disease is present. And this manifests in the threshold stage where the visual field defects abruptly appear on the visual field. Critical is the stage where quite advanced stage where despite treatment, 1/3 eyes, they do show deterioration. And when that's why we know that we need to do the risk stratification. And when we define the risk factor in the statistical terms, we say that it is something which leads directly to any disease progression and cannot be completely explained by the confounding factors or inappropriate comparison that's bias. So let's simplify this and put it all together into a clinical practice. Let's categorize the different patients of glaucoma into different groups, and starting with the development of glaucoma in normal eyes and the risk factors. We all know this as presented by OHTS and EGPS, that the lower baseline IOP and the lower pachymetry are the significant risk factors. But It is not only about the eye. In glaucoma, as we all know, always it has to be a holistic approach. It's not only about the intraocular pressure. We need to go back, look into the history and talk to the patient so that we can reveal more and more history points like systemic examination. The study shows that even a 10 millimeter change in the systolic blood pressure can significantly increase or decrease the incidence of glaucoma patients, and so is the treatment for the hypertension as well. Again, not going in the details, the risk factors as presented by OHTS and EGPS, but yes, of course, we need to pay attention to certain predictive factors which gradually become apparent during the follow-up visits of the patient. Last but not the least, I will say that this is a major significant risk factor which we can see during the follow-ups only. That's a higher mean IOP, because as we say that in POAG, it's been taught from time, since a childhood. One proverb, it's been taught in our mind very well, that open the umbrella when it rains, but it does really holds true always. The answer when we look at this progressive disease nature comes no. That's because by the time the patient has advanced to a advanced stage of the glaucoma, he has already become visually disabled. So only if we know in the early course of disease management that the progression, what is the progression rate, what is the particular thing which we would like to intervene in our patient to halt the disease progression, we can halt the disease progression. So we don't have to wait for the rain actually to open the umbrella when it comes to diagnose and treat the primary open angle glaucoma cases. So a risk profiling is needed. And looking at the literature, it says that each and every millimeters of mercury of IOP is associated with 10% increase or decrease risk of progression. And the mean IOP is associated with 13% higher risk of progression. Now coming to the risk factors, we've been taught that always it is there in our mind that higher baseline IOP a risk factor. But there are certain conditions where a lower baseline IOP can also work as a strong risk factor, especially when we deal the cases of normal tension glaucoma, where a lower baseline IOP and a lower diastolic BP can be helpful to us in predicting that how this case is going to progress, or this is the reason for progressing. Now, when we talk about this particular group of disease, that's primary angle closure disease, there a major limitation is that because there was no control group, because of the reasons being unethical in any longitudinal study, there is lack of the data suggesting that what is actual and natural history of the disease and identification of the risk factors. But as we can see across this literature report, which says that the bilateral PACS was a clinical risk factor for progression. Also, when a risk factor, when we are dealing with a case of primary angle closure disease, the risk factors which cannot be missed, if the patient is having a patent PI and still the patient is progressing, we need to go back, see the gonioscopy once again and see there are any traces of residual angle closure which might manifest in the form of a plateau iris, because in majority of the angle closure, some percentage of plateau iris is always there, and we should see the extent of the peripheral anterior synapse, and simultaneously the treatment can be modified. So now the question arises that how do we put all these risk factor analysis into clinical practice? That the answer is very clear, that it helps us to decide the frequency of the follow-up visits, to decide the frequency of the diagnostic test. This I'll explain in the subsequent slide that how, and to decide for a more aggressive therapy, whether we need to do only medical therapy or can we change to a laser or a surgical mode. So now again, one more question we need to address here whenever we are dealing with a glaucoma progression, that how do we optimize? But before this how, let us answer that why this optimization is necessary. That's because we need to preserve our patient's visual function, and that will provide him a good quality of life. And now this how optimization can be done, we all know, and now we'll learn gradually in this the subsequent presentations, that how the imaging modality can be used concurrently with the visual field to follow not only the late glaucomas, it is something to do with the early and the moderate glaucomas as well. But there's a big but to it, that the imaging modalities are gradually becoming complexer day by day, increasing the chances of errors and oversights have increased. For that, to overcome this particular challenge, we need to keep certain points in our mind, because we know, again, a proverb, that our eye sees what our mind knows. So we can say that what are the challenges? Let's see that what are the challenges which are faced while optimizing any glaucoma progression analysis for any patient. So let's start with the treatment affecting our measurement. Let me give an example here that HRT basically scans the optic nerve head portion, which is anterior to the lamina cribrosa. And you all know that HRT is sensitive to the fluctuating IOP. Take an example of a patient who is presenting to us in the OPD with a pressure of say 40 or 35. Now, if the HRT scan is taken at this particular IOP level, and after the treatment, the pressure has gone down to 15 or say 12, definitely the position of the optic nerve head, the HRT scan is going to be altered by that. So both these HRT scans cannot be compared to each other. So to see a progression via HRT, we need to set a new baseline in this particular patient. So always, whenever we are endorsing a patient that he is progressing, we need to recheck all our values, including if needed, a new baseline needs to be set up. Even if the patient has suffered from a cerebrovascular accident, any clinical status like diabetes or any macular edema or therapy status, IOP, everything needs to warrants a need of a setting of a new baseline IOP. Take an example of a trend analysis. We know the trend analysis is always a mean deviation plotting against a time. Now what happens, it shows a slope which might be significant or may not be significant. But what happens when we start treatment modality in any patient, the IOP changes. So the progression rate also might change. Now, if we do not change the baseline here, what will happen? That the software is analyzing the original baseline to the new baseline. But actually, the new baseline after starting the treatment is much closer to the recent one, which is showing a shallower slope. That means the progression rate would have decreased or gone stable. But actually with the software, if not changed, the patient will keep on showing progression and will keep on changing the decision modality. Now, maximizing our resources, again, take an example, say a patient is progressing with the rate of 2 decibel per year, and we are only doing annually one field for that case. So it will take a period, a couple of years to diagnose that actually the patient is progressing. And by that time, he would lose a significant amount of vision in the form of quality of life. So we need to do a minimum of 3 to 4 in the initial early period till we decide the rate of progression of the patient. Will have a good quality of examination, like a low signal to noise ratio, NOSTs, that's important. And always we need to collaborate both the investigation modalities, the event, the functional and the structural progression together, along with the event and the trend analysis. So while I conclude this presentation, let's have a sneak peek into a glaucoma patient's quality of life. As said by the literature that the reading, walking and driving, these are the different day-to-day activities we take it for granted, but the glaucoma patient, because of the poor quality of life, they all suffer by the difficulty in these small things in the life. And this has been further substantiated by different literature and longitudinal studies, which have used the National Eye Institute Visual Function Questionnaire. So here again, we should keep one thing in mind, that when we are talking about the fast progressor, as I said, that we are going to address the fast progressor per se, because the slow progressors, they do have an advantage again here, because they have gotten time to adapt to their limited functional status by developing compensatory strategies, but that doesn't hold true for the fast progressor. So only if we are alert in time to intervene in time, definitely we can save our patients and give them a good quality of life. And always, it is not only the visual field which give us the prediction of the quality of life. It would be about the assessing the structural damage as well.